The stars outside the porthole had ceased their twinkle. From this altitude, above the 7th planetary ring of Zarian 6, the universe looked paused, like a breath held before impact. Commander Eli Kor adjusted the magnetic stabilizers as the Odyssey Edge hummed a low, uneasy vibration beneath his boots. This wasn't just another salvage run. It was an infiltration into the heart of what the Interstellar Accord had deemed unapproachable, Grid Zero, the orbital shadow of the lost alien base known as Ecliptera. There were no beacons, no coordinates, just rumors built on classified echoes and black box recordings retrieved from derelict vessels. Every story ended the same, dead silence followed by unexplained disappearance. The Accord called them atmospheric failures. Eli knew better. Something down there didn't want to be remembered. The ship slipped beneath the thermosphere. He could feel the sudden drag of resistance as they entered the veil of gravity surrounding the blackened hemisphere. All systems began flickering, not violently but as if hesitating. Lights dimmed rhythmically, systems whispered in static pulses. The deeper they descended, the more reality unraveled. Time slowed. Or bent. Or maybe memory itself faltered. Through the reinforced glass, the crew witnessed Ecliptera, a floating monolith buried within clouds of electromagnetic haze. It was massive, ancient, and alive in a way no machine should be. Its spires pulsed with quiet crimson energy like veins beneath a dying star. The base wasn't orbiting. It was anchored, chained to something unseen. Something beneath the surface of Zarian SIX's metallic core. Core initiated deepscan protocols. Echoes returned with strange delays, like sound bouncing through folded space. The readouts displayed geometric impossibilities. Corridors mapped in 4 dimensions, rooms with no entrances but full of decaying atmosphere. And then, for a heartbeat, the ship's AI spoke in a voice it didn't have. "Welcome back?" Core froze. The crew exchanged silent glances. That phrase. It matched a recording from the vessel Oryx, lost 62 years ago. Same words, same cadence. Only the ship never reported any return. As the Odyssey Edge docked with the outer rim of the alien base, a single message appeared across every monitor: intrusion accepted. And then the door unlocked from the inside. The docking bay was vast, too vast for any ship in recorded history to justify its dimensions. As the Odyssey Edge sealed its connection, the external cameras captured a mist, not vapor, not gas, but a kind of living fog that clung to metal like muscle memory. No landing lights illuminated the area, yet everything could be seen, not through sight, but sensation. Eli Kor stepped through the threshold and immediately felt the pressure shift, as if the atmosphere recognized his biology and adjusted. The air was breathable. Shouldn't have been. The chamber walls curved with unnatural precision, pulsating slightly as if the entire docking bay were part of a single organism, some living alloy, hybridized between technology and flesh. Every footstep echoed, but not away, inward, bouncing back not as sound, but as a memory. Kor could feel his own thoughts reverberate in the air, fragments of childhood, old lovers, fractured regrets. The base was listening. The crew split into formation, weapons lowered but ready. The AI voice hadn't spoken again since the haunting "welcome back," but the ship's log now showed a new subdirectory labeled Origin. Inside were thousands of encrypted files, all timestamped to the current hour. Yet none had been uploaded, they simply existed as if the base had always known they would come. A central corridor awaited, oval, ribbed with what resembled bone but felt like cooled obsidian. As they moved deeper, the walls began to breathe. Not metaphorically. The texture moved, rising and falling in a slow rhythm that matched Kor's pulse. Not his suit's sensors, his own heart. The synchronization wasn't coincidental. Something inside Ecliptera was learning. Lieutenant Serene pointed toward an arch at the end of the corridor, a gateway sealed in liquid metal, constantly reshaping its surface like a mirror made of thoughts. A handprint icon appeared, hovering midair. No projection source. Just there. Floating. Waiting. Kor stepped forward and placed his glove to it. The seal hissed. The metal retreated like water down a drain, revealing a chamber unlike any the Accord had ever imagined. Columns made of sound, that's the only way to describe them, resonated with vibrations that formed shapes in midair. Triangles pulsed into spirals. Spirals became eyes. Eyes blinked into galaxies. In the center stood a sphere. 10 meters across, suspended by nothing, rotating slowly with the stars projected on its surface. Stars that no chart in the known galaxy could place. And beneath that sphere, a humanoid form. Not machine. Not alive. Frozen mid-motion, arms extended, palms upward as if offering something. Or warning. Then the chamber spoke. Not in words. In grief. Kor staggered. An emotion not his own crashed through his skull like a tidal wave of sorrow too old to belong to any species. It was mourning. For what, he couldn't know. But the sense was clear, this base, this alien monolith, wasn't abandoned. It was grieving. And now they had awakened what should have never been disturbed. They followed the resonance. Not a command, not an invitation, just a pull. Like gravity, but not physical. It was memory that dragged them now. Each step deeper into Ecliptura led them further into its past. The chamber of the grieving sphere receded behind them as a new path unveiled itself, literally unfolded from the walls like origami sheets folding outward to reveal a corridor previously non-existent. The ship's AI had gone silent. All sensors flatlined. Core could hear nothing but the thudding of his own pulse and the faint whisper of ancient electricity humming through the alien alloy. Lieutenant Serene touched the wall. It rippled beneath her glove like liquid thought. Then, as if in response, the corridor filled with light. Not beams, but floating glyphs, glowing alien runes that orbited their heads, each one muttering fragmented sounds in forgotten dialects. Core tried to capture the data on his wrist terminal. No luck. The characters couldn't be photographed. Each time the system attempted a scan, the glyphs changed, not in shape, but in meaning. A doorway appeared without motion, one moment a smooth surface, the next a perfect circle etched into the wall, and beyond it, a cathedral of silence. The archive. They called it that instinctively. There was no label, no plaque. But every crew member who stepped inside said it aloud, the same word, spoken at the same time. Archive. The ceiling was lost in shadow, but above them floated thousands, maybe millions of translucent cubes, each one suspended in anti-gravity. Each cube contained a life. Or what was left of it. Holographic echoes, preserved moments in time, flickering images of alien worlds long since dead. In one, a six-legged being constructed a temple under twin suns. In another, an aquatic creature swam through a black ocean filled with stars. There were humans too, ancient versions, dressed in pre-space flight clothing, waving at nothing with innocent eyes. Serene wept. Not from emotion, but compulsion. A cube had hovered toward her and unlocked, showing her own face, aged by centuries, sitting alone in a glass dome on some desolate moon, whispering the word return over and over again. What is this? Eli murmured. A voice answered. But not through the comms. Inside their minds. This is what remains of those who disobeyed extinction. The voice had no tone, no source. Yet it vibrated with truth so pure, it stripped away disbelief like wind tears through smoke. The archive wasn't just a database. It was a memorial. A vault of defiance. The final stand of civilizations who refused to be forgotten. One by one, the crew was approached by cubes. Each reflection different. Each memory impossible. One soldier saw himself as a reptilian general. Another saw herself give birth to a child with light for eyes. Are these past lives? Serene asked, shivering. No, the voice replied. They are futures that never happened. And then the archive flickered. All cubes vibrated in unison. The lights dimmed. Something was coming, not physically, but informationally. A presence. Core turned to leave, but the doorway was gone. The archive had closed. And now the test would begin. Darkness didn't fall. It folded. Where once the archive shimmered with alien luminescence and impossible histories, now it existed in suspended void, a silence so profound it wasn't merely the absence of sound, but the death of communication itself. Lieutenant Serene's voice tried to emerge, but her words dissolved before reaching the air. Core's hand signals meant nothing, even motion seemed stripped of meaning. This wasn't sensory deprivation. This was linguistic annihilation. And then light returned in lines. Razor-thin beams began tracing symbols into the air. Not with illumination, but with heat. Each glyph burned into the space around them, searing patterns into nothingness. The walls did not reflect it. No surfaces reacted. Only their minds felt it, each mark carving into their consciousness with scorching precision. Core staggered as a wave of comprehension hit him, not through learning but injection. It wasn't that he understood the glyphs. They were being installed into his neural pathways like software. Knowledge delivered at the speed of pain. A voice returned, different now. No longer smooth, no longer neutral. Vocabulary accepted. The archive had tested them, found them worthy of its language. And now it demanded response. The chamber around them began to collapse, not physically, but conceptually. Sections of reality peeled back like fragile parchment, revealing layered dimensions hidden behind perception itself. The archive was not built for space as they understood it. It was engineered to exist between layers of meaning. a construct formed from belief, history, and resonance. One by one, the cubes reformed. This time, they displayed not memories, but questions. What is the price of remembrance? Why do you preserve failure? Would you rewrite your extinction? Kor's lips moved without command. The language inside him, burning and brilliant, took control. We seek the root, he said. The archive paused. The root was severed, came the answer. Suddenly, they were no longer in the archive. They were somewhere deeper. The transition didn't happen in space. It happened in thought. One blink, and the cathedral of memory was replaced by a circular chamber of obsidian black, dotted with red stars across the ceiling like inverted constellations. In the center floated a monolith, not tall but impossibly dense. Not metal, not stone. A compressed node of everything that once was. The language core. Here sound returned, but as consequence. Each word spoken was etched into time itself. Kor realized the truth. This wasn't a library. This was judgment. Civilizations were not remembered here. They were weighed. A new voice emerged, older than galaxies. You've spoken the tongue of sorrow, it said. Now answer in truth. One wall unfolded, and beyond it Earth. Not present day, ancient, pre-human, still forming in volcanic breath. You may alter, the voice said. One truth for one survival. Choose. Kor felt the gravity of the choice surge through his blood. The archive was offering them a rewrite, a second chance for a forgotten species. But only one. And to give one life, another must be erased. The crew looked at him. Serene whispered, finally able to speak, we were never just explorers, were we? Kor didn't answer, because the archive already knew. Now, the decision had begun. Time, as they understood it, disintegrated. The moment the archive posed the impossible choice, the chamber shifted, not in structure, but in intent. The black monolith at its core began to fragment, yet each piece remained suspended midair, orbiting an idea too vast for the human mind to fully grasp. It wasn't a puzzle. It was a map. A living record of every sentient species the archive had encountered, preserved in encoded gravity. Each fragment represented a timeline. Some pulsed with fading energy, others glowed bright. Thriving somewhere in the cosmos. But a few blinked erratically. Failing. Forgotten. Erased. Kor stepped forward, breath shallow. His visor fogged from within, though the environment remained climate stable. He wasn't overheating from temperature. It was legacy that burned now. In the center of the fragments floated a lone shard, untouched by decay, rotating slowly like a hesitant question. The shard bore no emblem, no data signature. Just a sound. A heartbeat. Human. Kor recognized it instantly. Not just because it was familiar, but because it was his. Serene stared at the monolith with widened eyes. That shard, it's yours. No, Kor said slowly, the words foreign in his mouth. It's ours. Suddenly, the archive pulled inward, drawing all light and thought into itself like a singularity of reflection. The walls bled stars. The chamber's boundary ceased. They stood in a vacuum of memory now, untethered, weightless, but anchored by a single question. Who deserves to remain? One by one, the faces of long-extinct civilizations flickered into the dark. Creatures made of crystal and fire, of cloud and song, of silence and light. Some had perished in war. Others in peace. Some vanished without sound, others screaming into the void. The archive did not differentiate. All were given weight. All were given a voice. And then it turned to Kor. Humanity is unstable, it declared without judgment. Capable of beauty. But more often, repetition. You stand on the edge of extinction not from invasion, but from decision. Kor clenched his fists. We've changed. Do you claim that change should be remembered? A portal opened, no machine, no light. Just a tearing consequence. Within it, a world without Earth. A universe where humanity was never born. Clean, quiet, balanced. Peaceful. But empty in ways that silence could never fill. Next to it, a second vision. Earth still alive barely. Cities sinking, skies burned, oceans screaming with the heat of consequence. But children still laughing. Artists still dreaming. Scientists still reaching. Serene stepped beside him. If we erase us, what becomes of this moment? The archive answered with nothing. Not silence, but deference. The choice was no longer theirs. It was his. And in that instant, Kor understood the core's final test. It didn't want data. It wanted belief. Not in the past, but in a future worth remembering. He stepped forward into the beam of the monolith. The shard bearing his echo pulsed once, then split. 2 timelines. 2 outcomes. Only one could survive. A voice returned, almost gentle. Speak your answer. And he did. Just one word. Hope. That was the word. Spoken not as defense nor argument, but as surrender to something larger than logic. When Kor let the syllable fall from his lips, it didn't echo in the chamber. It reverberated through the archive, pulsing outward in concentric waves of memory, crashing into data vaults and ancient subroutines with seismic finality. A response so primitive, so human, that even the archive's eternal logic couldn't immediately compute its full gravity. The monolith responded. Not in voice. Not in thought. But in transformation. It began to unravel, its solid mass detaching into threads of encoded light. Those threads twisted, spiraled, and began rewriting themselves mid-air, like DNA strands constructing a new purpose. Kor's breath caught in his throat. His suit's systems flared with chaotic readings, time dilation, molecular flux, language bleeding into matter. The archive wasn't merely reacting to his word. It was restructuring reality around it. Serene fell to one knee, clutching her helmet. What's happening? We passed, Kor said, uncertain whether he believed it. Or we failed in a way they can forgive. The room began to ascend or perhaps descend, folding upward as if space itself were collapsing inward. What was once the black vault of judgment became a womb of white light, expanding in warmth and motion. Kor saw the faces again. The extinct. The forgotten. This time, they were not static memories. They were watching. Not hostile. Not mournful. Just waiting. Each face carried the same expression, recognition. Not of Kor himself, but of the choice he made. The archive did not seek perfect species. It sought those still willing to try. Even in failure. Even in ruin. A corridor emerged, not of steel or light, but of thought. It stretched into a tunnel of moments never lived. A corridor of what could be. And on either side, doors. Behind one, a vision of Earth's collapse reversed. Ice caps healed. Skies cleared. Not utopia, but direction. Behind another, a future without war. Humanity scattered across the stars. Not unified, but curious. A corridor emerged, not of steel or light, but of thought. It stretched into a tunnel of moments never lived. A corridor of what could be. And on either side, doors. Behind one, a vision of Earth's collapse reversed. Ice caps healed. Skies cleared. Not utopia, but direction. Behind another, a future without war. Humanity scattered across the stars. Not unified, but curious. And behind a third, the Odyssey edge, intact, floating above a now-dormant Ecliptura. As if this entire journey had been a dream or a filter that reality itself passed through. You gave us one word, said the archive's voice at last, merging now with the tone of thousands of civilizations whispering in harmony. And so we give you one fate. Kor turned toward his crew. Serene nodded. They walked together through the third door. The corridor collapsed behind them like a book closing, not erased, but shelved. In an instant, they were back aboard the Odyssey edge, alarms off, stars steady outside the window. Ecliptura still loomed in the distance, but silent, dark, and still. Like a mausoleum that had finally told its last story. But something had changed. Kor's wrist terminal flickered to life. A new directory had appeared, legacy_000. Inside were no coordinates. No maps. Just a single file. A voice recording. His own, but aged deeper, slower, more worn. And it said, to those who arrive after me, know that the archive was never a place. It was a question. And the answer is always becoming. He looked to Serene. We weren't the first to be tested, she whispered. No, Kor said. But we might be the first to leave the answer behind. Outside, the stars began to shift. Realigning. Reacting. And far below, in the hollow heart of Ecliptura, the core pulsed once more. But this time, it pulsed in hope. They thought it was over. The Odyssey edge hovered in orbit, systems normal, crew silent. Ecliptura, once alive, once inquisitive, rested below in dead quiet, its obsidian surface reflecting no light, no intent. Yet something had changed. Not in the ship nor the sky, but in them. Kor stood at the observation deck, hands folded behind his back. The memory of the archive still burned behind his eyes, not as trauma but imprint. He could still feel the echo of the question the Kor had posed. Who deserves to remain? He had answered. But the answer wasn't his alone anymore. The crew now carried fragments, subtle alterations to thought and instinct. Serene had begun dreaming of places she'd never been. Ensign Lura spoke in a dialect no one recognized, but that the ship's AI began translating before it could be programmed. Data logs, encrypted beyond modern decryption, were unlocking themselves. Not through force. Through remembering. The archive hadn't released them. It had embedded itself within them. Core reviewed the final entry in the legacy_000 file. Not audio, not text, but instruction. Build. Not ships, not weapons, but memory engines. The message included schematics for a device unlike any human instrument, a blend of organic circuitry and temporal recursion. It wasn't meant to store information. It was meant to feel it. To carry grief, joy, failure, love, and decision through time. A living monument. Not of species. Of choice. They constructed it on the moon of Arith 9, a neutral world with no allegiance, no history. Perfect for a beginning. As they built, more ships arrived, others drawn to the same silent signal Ecliptura had once sent. Vessels from forgotten outposts, refugee colonies, even species long considered myth. They arrived not in conquest, but in recognition. And together, they built the memory engine. A tower of light and breath wrapped in languages from across time, designed to outlast the stars themselves. Not to preserve data, but understanding. Core was the last to leave its chamber once complete. He placed his hand on the core. The first of many cores that would one day form a network stretching beyond galaxies. He whispered, "We are what we choose to remember." And the engine pulsed once. Softly. Accepting. Decades passed. Centuries. The memory engine endured. It did not spread by force. It grew when civilizations made the same choice, to remember not what they had conquered, but what they had lost and why they chose to continue. One day, far from where it began, a child born on a planet yet unnamed asked their mother, "What is that light in the sky?" And she answered without hesitation, "That is where stories go when they learn how to forgive."